Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm GiGi. Still Thursday, January 22nd. We're going to break down the afternoon testimony in day 6 of the Brendan Banfield trial. Before we jump in, a few changes to the schedule due to the big winter storm that's coming all in for everybody on the East Coast. They're going to come in early tomorrow and start going over jury instructions beginning at 9 a.m. So I will have that feed up and running. And normally there's no court on Fridays, but since the storm is coming and it very well could impact next week's court schedule, the judge would like to have everybody stay a little later to get as much in. Really, the judge would like to have all of the evidence finished by tomorrow if possible. The defense has 3 more witnesses. However, poor Brendan Miller was back on the stand, and he was the last witness of the day. He will still be on the stand in the morning. And then after that, they have 3 more witnesses. He said he could be done tomorrow, but he isn't sure. And at the pace we're going, I'm going to say that's a no, but we'll see. As far as the state for rebuttal, they have 2 witnesses at most. So the judge, again, says their goal is to get finished with all of the evidence tomorrow and have closings when they get back in court after the storm. So let's jump back into the testimony. Still on the stand after lunch was David Giaccio. The proffer for Juliana began around 4 or 5 p.m. on October 25th, and he was next door listening by phone. They bring in a text between him and another investigator named Patrick, and the witness says in the text that the offer will be manslaughter with time served after Brendan's trial. Patrick responds, "That's absolute dog crap." And by crap, you can assume what word he used. The witness says he is on a call with Joseph Ryan's family now, and also his opinion of the plea deal is the same as Patrick's. The defense asks if they were holding things back from the Commonwealth, specifically holding off on telling the Commonwealth about the results of the blood evidence that showed blood on both Brendan and Juliana's clothing. He said it would have been told to the Commonwealth later that evening or the next day. That way, if the Commonwealth calls a higher up, they would be able to have a conversation, and the higher up would be able to explain this stuff to the Commonwealth. He said that's how they do things. They go on about this for a while, though. The defense asks about other offers made to Juliana before they offered her manslaughter. He says he thinks that they did, but he doesn't know what deals were offered. He does think offers were made before her preliminary hearing and then again before Brendan was arrested. Talking about the jail calls, they did have somebody assigned to listen to calls all the time. And in fact, they had a Portuguese speaking officer listen in since she was speaking in her native language a lot. There were times the listener was concerned about Juliana's mental health and they would relay that to jail staff. And the defense attorney and the witness go back and forth about detectives being transferred for way too long. So we're going to skip through all that. When you were speaking to Joseph's family, were you the main contact for them and the Banfield family? He says no. Then he's asked, what was the phone call about? And the witness says he really doesn't remember, but maybe to fill them in that the proffer was coming. Defense asked if that's his role or is that the role of victim services? He said it was in concert with victim services and he wouldn't have made that call without them on board. He believes he was a silent observer during that call. He said he did have in-person meetings with both families when they were in town. They bring in more text between him and Patrick, and the witness says he did let former prosecutor Klingon know, and I told him I would accept his humble apology in writing. He said you, meaning Patrick, were right all along. Patrick says if it hadn't been for me, you and Sally, this never happens. The witness explains this text highlights who believed in the catfish theory and who didn't. With prosecutor Klingon, he was the old prosecutor, if you remember, before he got caught sipping on some beers in, I think, the Goodwill parking lot, and he was taken off the case. The defense asked if this text thread was a celebration, and the witness said it was a confirmation. Did you know it was 2 weeks before trial that the proffer occurred? Yes. Was it your position you needed her to testify against Brendan? The witness thought, of course, it would be helpful, but it wasn't necessary with the evidence they had against Brendan. Her proffer did give a lot of context to a lot of things that were in the witness's executive summary he produced. They bring in another text with Detective Patrick Bruce, who says, "This is actually making me angry." The witness replies, "B guided her through." And then Patrick says, "Because 99% of the people we work with are absolute morons. So the only thing we may have gotten wrong is you and I believe Christine was dead before Joe got there." And the witness replies, "So far." Patrick says, "Which all intensive purposes made total sense considering what we knew." The witness replies, "The plan was not for her to shoot unless things went wrong." And Patrick says that's interesting. The witness says that Joe was moaning in pain, so Juliana shot him. She had the gun on her the whole time. So that was the end of that text thread. And can you imagine how awkward it's going to be at the water cooler tomorrow now that their texts are out and they're talking about 99% of their workers being morons? The defense asked, in these texts, these were some of your theories going in? And the witness says confirming that Brendan and Juliana created the account was part of their theory. There's another communication between the two. The witness sends a text to Patrick, says he's listening now, and he says this is good. She just confirmed that he, meaning Brendan, would send her home from the gym so she could post when he was not in the house. Patrick replies, "So it's okay to tell Chief and Brooke it's 100% catfish?" And the witness replied, "Yes." Patrick asks, "Anything else juicy?" And the witness responds, "Nothing too crazy so far. She is ice cold." Patrick says, "But she confirmed they created the account?" And he says, "Yes." When asked what he thought about the proffer, he said Juliana seemed truthful and they were able to confirm things she said with their investigation and the evidence they found. By the way, Juliana did get some pizza during her proffer. You got to butter them up, y'all. On cross, you all contributed to questions Juliana would be asked, but the former prosecutor would be the mouthpiece, and the witness says yes. The Commonwealth. The proffer was not the reason it was decided to charge Brendan. No. He said the digital evidence confirmed what she told them, that she would leave the gym and go home to post on FetLife or communicate through the Telegram app while Brendan wasn't home. They also had confirmation with her going to the gun range through photos, and replacing the windows was not something they knew about until Juliana told them. And that was it for him. The next witness, Sally Fiaz, she is the head of victim services for the Fairfax County Police Department. They bring in some text messages, and the defense asks, is it common to have jail calls in your communications with law enforcement? She says it's not every day, but it is okay. And for reference, what they showed was, if you send somebody a text and you attach audio, it shows it's an audio file. That was on the screen, and that was what he was asking her about specifically. Below where the audio is attached, Patrick says arresting him will put him over. And Sally says he sounds like a big baby. Patrick says he's going to fold. The defense asked if they would normally say things like that. She says, yeah, I'm sure we have in the past. She just doesn't know the context of this particular text. So he proceeds to ask her about a lot of different text messages, and she really doesn't remember them. He asked if she was involved in the theory of catfishing, and she said yes. She didn't suggest it was, but she did suggest it be proven it wasn't catfishing. And as time went on, it became a possibility. The defense asked, where did this theory come from? Did you start it? No. How soon after the murders did it become a discussion topic? She said her personal view started a couple of days after the murder because things came out that made people think this could be catfishing. She wasn't the only one who thought that, though. And there were group discussions, and they were saying they needed to figure out whether or not this was a setup. The actual phrase catfishing came in later. The defense attorney gets confused between command staff meetings and just regular meetings. The witness is talking about meetings that are give and take. You give updates. Where's the case headed? You exchange ideas. He goes on and on about this. We're going to keep going. She said she did get Brendan, Juliana, and the child a hotel that night so they would have somewhere to go. Then he goes on this whole line of questioning about having Brendan detained, and this would be the day of the murders. She says she can't ask he be detained, but she can express her concerns to investigators. On cross, What was it that brought up the theory of Christine being set up? This was the most interesting piece of testimony that came out of the entire day. The witness said they had an intel detective at the hotel where Brendan, Juliana, and the child were staying. The child asked Juliana, "Can I call you mommy now?" And Juliana says yes. The child asked Juliana, "Are you going to marry my daddy?" And Juliana said, "I wish." Think about this, y'all. Her mother has just been murdered. To me, it seems like this kid maybe knew way more than she should have to very quickly ask Juliana if she could call her mommy. That conversation should have went in a whole different direction. But then again, we are dealing with a confessed murderer. So there's that. The next witness, Detective Brendan Miller, back on the stand. This poor guy. They talk a while about raw data. The defense attorney asks him about people reviewing his work, what items they went over, if superiors agreed with his work. The defense asks about the day the Gmail account was created. Was there any way he could tell if Christine lost control of her device? And again, he can't put anybody behind a screen. He did admit there was a disagreement with the way he phrased his executive summary. The defense attorney poses some hypotheticals, saying if he had been allowed in the room while Juliana was proffering, would he ask the specifics about the window purchases? The witness is like, I don't think I would have been prepared to do that. He's asked how he could have confirmed what Juliana was saying during her proffer. And he said he would do keyword searches or things like that with the data. December 3rd, 2022, on Christine's phone, there's a communication that says Windows. And the defense asks if that's an indication of a search for Windows. So they're showing this screen capture, but the witness says he did not make this screen capture, so he can't say. But it is a calendar event, and the email being used to put this in the calendar was Christine's personal email. He asks about several more screen captures. Again, he can't say for sure because he did not do the screen captures. They show a document that was produced showing screen captures of activity on FetLife, on Christine's devices. So that's where we ended the day. I really don't think we're going to get finished tomorrow with how questioning is going for each witness he calls. I can't imagine this jury is invested at this point. Now, about tomorrow, I'm hoping to get out the morning update at a regular time. However, we have ice apocalypse coming this weekend. It's like Elsa is just going to vomit a bunch of ice all over Greenville, South Carolina. So I do have some running I need to do tomorrow on opposite ends of town, and it's just going to be a nightmare with traffic. So the afternoon recap, if it's out tomorrow, it will be late. If not, I'll get it out by lunch Saturday. But that's it for today. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.